And so with that, I'd like to introduce our speaker for the day, who is Suzanne Crawford. And she is the CEO of Sister Carmen here in Lafayette. And she is just a wonderful community partner. In fact, Sister Carmen gave us this award earlier this year, and it's Community Partner of the Year in 2020, so actually last year, and it was presented to the Boulder Rotary Club for working on trying to get some food drives going. So as you can see here, Suzanne is the CEO of Sister Carmen Community Center. It serves Lafayette, Louisville, Superior, and Erie. And she's been the CEO for 16 years. And she was a virtual guest of Congressman Joe Neguse for President Biden's address this week to highlight her work to fight food insecurity. And she's an artist. So I'm looking forward to hearing Suzanne today. Welcome, Suzanne.
Thank you very much, Sally, and thanks to all of you for the invitation to speak to you today. I really appreciate it. Also just want to thank you for the past food drives and the upcoming food drive. We so appreciate the support. As you can probably imagine, there's been increased demand for food assistance since the pandemic started. So one of the things that I highlighted when I spoke with Congressman Neguse recently is over the last year, we did almost an additional 250,000 pounds of food, bringing our total for the year to about 1.5 million pounds of food, which is significant. It's a significant increase. So we couldn't have done it without your support, and really, really appreciate it. Just to start, I'll tell you a little bit about Sister Carmen in case some of you are not familiar. We've been around officially as a nonprofit organization since 1978. We were started by a group of volunteers who worked with the actual person, Sister Carmen. She was sent up by the Denver Archdiocese to do outreach to communities in this area. And one of the things that she discovered as she was doing outreach is that there was food insecurity even back then. So this group of volunteers started collecting food in someone's garage and distributing it that way. And those were our humble beginnings. And of course, we're still distributing food, but we do a lot of other things. So our food bank right now is being run as a drive-through, and we typically see somewhere between 30 and 50 cars a day right now. But also under that same program area, which is nutrition and healthy living, we do several other things. We have an organic garden, which is just getting started for the year right now. So if any of you are ever interested in an outdoor volunteer opportunity, that's available. We always need help in the garden, and the garden grows food for our produce for our food bank to distribute. And garden volunteers are also able to take some home, but we feel it's a really helpful teaching tool. People get experience in growing their own food, and many of our participants help volunteer in the garden as well. We, during normal times, offer exercise classes, but haven't been doing that for the last year. So we're looking forward to being able to offer yoga and Zumba for free again someday. And we additionally offer nutrition classes in our nutrition and healthy living department. And we've been just recently offering those online for the first time. So that's been really interesting and helpful. Our other, second program area is advocacy. And that is what other agencies you might hear refer to as case management. But we are a strengths-based agency, and we don't believe that people are cases, and they also don't need our management. So we refer to it as advocacy. And those are our staff members who work one-on-one with families to help them reach their goals. And those goals could be any number of things. Sometimes a person comes in and they need to find a different housing situation, or they're looking for a better job, or they're having some trouble with their childcare or transportation. But as you can imagine, the biggest issue always in Boulder County is housing and housing assistance, specifically rent and mortgage assistance, and especially since the pandemic started. You might find it interesting to know that our little agency in Lafayette, Colorado has done over $1.5 million in rent and mortgage assistance in a little over a year since the pandemic started. That's a tremendous amount of money for us, and it's about 420% higher than what we would have done in a normal year. So that just shows you the tremendous increase in demand for that as people are really struggling to hold on to their housing. But we're happy because our community has really come through for us, and we've been able to access COVID relief funds also and be able to provide that support to folks. So that's been very meaningful. And we've been doing those appointments by phone or by Zoom, which has been very different for us because, as you can imagine, we really had to change our operations when this hit. And you also might imagine that if we experienced a 420% increase in rent and mortgage assistance, that we had to figure out how to accommodate that volume. And it was really challenging. But one of the benefits of being able to meet with people by phone or by Zoom is it does cut down on the amount of time that you need to schedule between appointments. And we've been able to fit more of those appointments in. Really have done so without additional advocacy staff. We didn't add any additional advocates. We did add a few extra staff for our food bank drive-through because some of our volunteers weren't able to come in after the pandemic hit. So the advocacy department has been very, 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 very busy over the last year. And in addition to the rent and mortgage assistance, they've also provided over $200,000 in other types of financial assistance, primarily utilities assistance and water bill assistance, but also other miscellaneous requests that we get from time to time, like car repairs and other things. Something else that we do that a lot of people are not aware of is we have a community and family education department, and we offer a variety of different classes. Now, during the pandemic, we've been limited in what we're offering. We've been doing 2 different types of parenting classes. So nurturing parenting, which is really for parents of younger kids. We've been offering those in both English and Spanish online via Zoom. And then we've also been just recently added active parenting, which is a parenting class for parents of teenagers. And the goal of all of those parenting classes is really to relieve the stressors on parents, give them a tool bag that they can use, for instance, that they, can relieve stress in their household, help them have a better relationship with their children, and ultimately try to reduce the need for folks to get involved in the child welfare system. And complementary to that, we have online support groups for parents that have been dealing with substance abuse issues. So that group is called Circle of Parents, and it's actually led by participants. So that's something really neat. We've been really happy to be able to provide all of those parenting supports because, as you can imagine, and I know you're probably, some of you are well aware of this from your own experience, no doubt, but things became really complicated for parents when this hit, and many of them were navigating, working from home and having kids at home and trying to figure out how to do online schooling with their kids and do their own tutoring with their kids and different things. So many of our parents reported that they were feeling quite isolated, and that being able to participate in these different parenting groups really helped them feel more connected and more supported. The other thing that we've been doing online during the pandemic are digital literacy classes. And that may seem a little weird, right? So how do you teach digital literacy online to people that perhaps don't have those skills? Well, we were asking ourselves that very question because we used to do our Bridging Digital Divide classes in person, and we would have, between 10 to 15 participants per class, and we provided them with a Chromebook, and then they learned how to turn on the Chromebook, and they learned basic internet navigation skills and basic computer skills, but all of that was happening in person with instructors and volunteers prior to the pandemic. And then the pandemic hit, and what had been a problem before with people not being able to access the internet or having a computer at home actually became crisis level because people weren't able to access services or information if they didn't have a computer or internet at home. And I should stop and mention that what many people don't realize is that this was a bigger problem in Boulder County than people would have imagined, because studies had shown that about 14% of households in Boulder County prior to the pandemic either did not have a computer at home or did not have internet access, or both. And in some cases, just really didn't have any idea of how to use various devices anyway. So the pandemic hit, and we knew that we had to continue to teach people and to get them devices and to get them connected. But it was a little bit difficult because there was social distancing. There was fear of transmitting COVID between people. We knew we couldn't do it in person. And so, yeah, honestly, I kind of laugh now looking back on it, because I never would have imagined that we would be able to figure it out. But our digital divide coordinator worked with our instructor group, and they started meeting with people one-on-one on porches and parks, and they would sit socially distanced and sort of show a person how to access Zoom, how to turn on the device, how to access Zoom, and then how to get to the support groups and classes online. And this has turned into ongoing coaching for many people. So we've both got formal classes going on and informal coaching sessions going on. And it has actually been really successful and much needed, as you can imagine. So we do look forward to the time when we can go back to offering some of those classes in person. But for now, this sort of hybrid model that we've developed is working really well. In normal times, we offer other classes as well. For instance, we have something called the Family Leadership Training Institute, which teaches people about civic involvement and civic engagement, and those participants develop their own project, sort of volunteer project to improve something and an issue that they've identified in the community. And often they go on to join boards or to get involved in other nonprofit organizations. And at least one has started her own nonprofit organization. So we're really proud about that. Teaching people to advocate for themselves is really important, because many people lack that critical skill and the confidence to go out and, for instance, if you're a parent, meet with the school board or talk to the principal at the school. A lot of people are really too shy to do something like that, but the Family Leadership Training Institute helps give them those skills. We also act as a training hub for other regional family resource centers. We provide the Family Development Credential, which is a 90-hour class plus homework to help people that are social workers learn just basic skills and how to work with people in a strengths-based way. We offer motivational interviewing, training in the protective factors, so a variety of different classes for people that are working in this field, and not just for Family Resource Center staff, but for other agency staff in Boulder County and Broomfield County, and even some county government employees come to those classes. So I think that's a good overview of our services. And then I just wanted to talk a little bit about how we've changed as an organization. You probably picked up on some of it when I've been talking. We used to have our food bank open for shopping, just like a grocery store. And of course, we had to transition to a drive-through. We used to do all of our appointments with our advocates in person, and we had to do those by phone and by Zoom. And then, of course, we had to change our classes to online classes. And it's really changed how we function and how we look as an organization today. And we don't expect that we'll ever go back to looking exactly how we did before. And we're planning right now for how we want to continue to operate in a hybrid fashion going forward, because what we've discovered is that some of our participants actually like being able to pull up their car and have the food loaded in the car and then go. Some of our participants find it very, very convenient to be able to do an appointment over the phone. rather than having to load their kids in the car and come to an in-person appointment. And same thing for classes. It's so nice for parents to be able to participate in parenting classes from their own home. And yet we also know that there's a real benefit to in-person interaction as well. And we, staff and volunteers here at Sister Carmen, selfishly really miss the interaction with our participants. This place in normal times is a real hub of activity. There are people in and out of the building. There are activities going on. We have 5 other agencies that have offices in the building. So there's a lot of interaction and interpersonal communication and things happening, and we really miss that. So we will find eventually some sort of balance for offering things online and then offering things in person. But we know that from talking with our participants, that having both options available is going to be really beneficial. So, we expect, for instance, maybe to offer one session of a class in person and the next one will be online, something like that. So with that, I think that's probably a really good overview, and I'll stop talking and let you ask questions.
Great. Thank you, Suzanne. Well, we do have some questions, and I'm going to remind all of our members to type your questions into the chat, and we will get to you. So the very first one up is Gordon Gam. Go ahead, Gordon.
There. You hear me now?
Yes, sir. Go right ahead, Gordon.
Yeah, and President Biden's speech, he indicated that this plan, if it's implemented, would reduce poverty by 1/2. Do you know who the other half that's not covered by his plan would be? Who are those?
Well, that's a really great question. I can speculate a little bit that the child tax credits will really help with the lowest income. Well, any of the parents that get the families that get the child tax credit will help, because they will have more money in their pocket to pay for their own essential items. I expect that will probably most help the folks that are not at the lowest level of poverty. That it will be most helpful in helping the folks rise out of poverty who, I don't know what percentage of federal poverty level it will be, because I wasn't expecting this question and didn't research it, but it'll be the folks that are closer to the edge of middle class that will actually rise out of poverty due to the child tax credits. What we know here in Boulder County is that, any extra money in someone's pocket is going to be very helpful, because it helps them to make their own choices and they don't have to rely quite as much on services. But in Boulder County, poverty looks different than it does in many other places. Families are struggling who wouldn't be considered to be living in poverty elsewhere, because our high cost of housing makes it so difficult for folks. Many people are spending 50 to 70% of their income just to pay for their housing. So while I do think that child tax credits will really be helpful, I expect that in Boulder County, it will only go so far because of our high cost of housing and also the high cost of childcare.
Okay, thank you. Next question is Marty Evans. Go ahead, Marty.
Thank you, Suzanne, for being here. We so appreciate it. You talk about, let's say, the younger family members, and I'm wondering, what about those that have elderly parents? Are you getting calls for help with, I have a family member who's dealing with Alzheimer's, or I need a break. Is there a place to go for daycare support for my parent or my relative, or any kind of resources like that? Is this something that you would happen to receive calls from Sister Carmen? It sounds like you become a major resource center for many families. So is this something that you deal with, and do you need partners with whom to work?
Thank you for asking that question, Marty. We do sometimes get those questions from families, and we primarily refer to the local senior centers and the area agency on aging when people have questions about those resources. I do think that we're in dire need of more of those resources as the population is aging. Specifically in Boulder County, our population is aging. So, but we do have some terrific partners that we can call for answers to questions or that we can refer to people directly to.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. And Dominica, you've got a question. Go right ahead.
Yes, my question might seem peculiar. I don't live in America. I have never lived in the United States. I live in Jamaica, where people who use food banks or anything of that sort normally do not drive. They walk or they take public transport. I was wondering what happens to people in Boulder who don't drive but need to use the food bank now that it's a drive-by.
That's a great question. So and I can answer from Sister Carmen Center's point of view, which is that we actually have delivery services available for folks who can't get here. So people can call up and they can tell us, if they have any special dietary needs, how many people are in their family. And then we will actually have someone go and drop it off directly at their house. Because there are quite a few folks that don't drive or are homebound. And then, of course, during the pandemic, it became even more of a necessity for us to offer that because folks would have to be quarantined at different times. And they still needed food. So we added on delivery services for that reason. And I know other agencies in Boulder County have done that too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. And kind of on the same lines about food drive and things of that nature, Suzanne, would you mind talking about, like, it feels great to give a can of soup or, physically and stuff, but money is also, how do you use money when people give money to a food drive, or what's the balance between people giving physical versus money and all that? Can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question that comes up quite a bit. It's really essential for us to receive actual food donations, cans and such, because we could not possibly budget enough cash to purchase the amount of food that we get donated. It just wouldn't be possible. Our cash budget in a normal year, this year's different, but in a normal year, our cash budget would typically be about $1.9 million. But then we have an additional in-kind budget, which is usually about $2.4 to $2.7 million. And the vast majority of that in-kind is food that's been donated. So you can see how that makes a huge difference for us, is actually having people give us food to distribute. That said, when we get checks at food drives, it is helpful because it supports our food bank operation, and it also allows us there are things that we don't get in enough quantity. There are things that it's just not practical for someone to bring to a food drive. For instance, it's not practical for people to bring like a pound of ground beef to a food drive. So we do have to purchase some food. And so it's helpful to have some funding for that. And over the last year, in addition to getting some donations from individuals at food drives, we also have received some grants specifically for food purchases, which has been really helpful.
Okay. Thank you, Suzanne. Bonita, you've got a number. Every one of your questions is good, but I need you to pick your favorite child here, because we'll cycle back to you once we get to some other people. Okay. So why don't you ask one question, Bonita?
Okay. So what communities do you serve? I know that you serve the Louisville Lafayette community, but how far does your outreach go?
Great question. So for our basic services like food and financial assistance, we serve Lafayette, Louisville, Superior, and the part of Erie within the Boulder Valley School District. That's our official boundary. For basic services. However, for the Bridging Digital Divide classes and our parenting classes, those can be accessed by anyone, anywhere, basically. So the entirety of Boulder County, but we will also consider folks from other areas. For instance, not too long ago, we were contacted by the Family Resource Center in Estes Park because they don't have an education coordinator. And so they asked if they could have some of their folks attend our parenting classes. So, and that's one benefit of online, is that we can potentially have more capacity with online, although it does get a little tricky with discussion. If you have 20 people online, it's hard to get to everyone's questions and discussion points. So, we're learning about that as we go.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you for the question, Benita, and thank you for the answer, Suzanne. And Judy's got a question for you. Go ahead, Judy.
Thank you for the work you do, and I'm wondering how you'd best like volunteers to help you.
Great question. Well, we have a number of different volunteer opportunities. We never completely shut down, so we've needed volunteers this whole time, and we are always looking for volunteers in our thrift store. And of course, we aim to be very safe. We require masks and social distancing, but we need help over there with sorting through clothing and putting things out on the racks. And we also, I'm not quite sure if we're totally full in the food bank right now, but we do tend to need food bank volunteers also. And those are the folks who sort through the donations and put them on the shelf in normal times, or help create food boxes now. So we're always looking for food bank volunteers. We're in need of office volunteers. That's a little bit more tricky because you have to really learn about our services to be able to answer the phones. But if you like talking to people, we really appreciate having front desk volunteers that can help, because sometimes the phones get pretty busy and only having one person isn't adequate. So those are just some of the main opportunities, but we also are always looking during gardening season for garden volunteers. We're able to actually accommodate small groups out there even during pandemic times. So if you have a group of friends or something that want to come and do that together, that's a great opportunity for a small group.
So we could just go online to your site and find these.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or you can call our director of volunteers. Her name is Ann Huggins, and you're welcome to call and talk with her. And her email address is just ann@sistercarmen.org. So you can email her too.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Sally, President Sally has a question.
Thank you again for being here with us, Suzanne. And I heard that at least 13 child care centers have closed this year in Boulder. And so what are some of the things that you're seeing lower income families doing to deal with this? How are they coping with less child care?
Yeah, that's a great question. And some of those child care centers were child care centers that accepted CCAP, which is the subsidy for childcare for lower income folks. So it has been difficult for families. Many of them, though, are, some of those families have people in their family that are out of work. So they're having their kids, be taken care of by relatives, or in some instances, families are working together and sort of sharing the responsibility and doing a lot more like friend and family care right now. But it's difficult. And now that people are going back to work, more people are going back to work. It's a bit of a problem because they can't really go back to work if they can't find adequate childcare. So this is going to be a challenge for probably the foreseeable future.
Okay, thanks. And then we have a couple more questions. You have enough time, Suzanne? Is that right? Does that work?
Absolutely.
Okay, wonderful. Cassidy, go right ahead.
Hey, Suzanne, thank you so much for being here today. My question is, so you do a lot. When you talk to people, if you had one thing that you could ask people to do to help your work to eradicate poverty in Boulder County, what is that? What would it be?
that's a difficult one, Cassidy, because I'm really torn between saying, give us money. Yeah, sorry, but that's the bottom line is we're always needing money to help people. But I think that right up there, that's equal in importance and possibly even more important is talking to people about poverty and the issues around poverty, because there's still a lot of people that don't realize that this wasn't something new with the pandemic. We have always had folks that were struggling in Boulder County. And it's very difficult for many families in Boulder County because, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of them are paying 50 to 70% of their income towards housing, and housing costs keep going up and going up. There's this tendency also for people to assume that folks that are living in poverty aren't working hard enough, or that they just haven't taken advantage of opportunities available to them. And it's not actually true. I can't say that it's true. It's not true for anyone, but the vast majority of people that we work with here at Sister Carmen are really hardworking. They're often working 2 and 3 jobs, and they're just not making enough to get by. So, I think it would be real helpful for folks anytime you have an opportunity to have a friendly conversation with somebody about what the reality is, to share what you know.
And also to tell them to donate to Sister Carmen. Thanks, Suzanne.
Thank you.
Okay, great. And then Bonita, you had such great questions. We're going to come back to you and you get to ask your 1 or 2 remaining questions. Go ahead.
Okay, so the last 2 questions are regarding the classes. So the first one, digital literacy, is it in English and Spanish? And then the second question is, for parenting classes, have you thought about, or do you have a relationship with the Parent Engagement Network, or PEN, which does offer a lot of English and Spanish parenting resources and classes? So digital learning and then relationship with PEN.
Yes, Digital Divide, actually, we do that in both English and Spanish, but we've had a lot more demand in Spanish. So we offer it more often in Spanish than in English. And we do have a relationship with PEN, the Parent Engagement Network. So we do take advantage of their resources. We're on their email list, so we get a lot of helpful information from that organization.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. And I know that Kitty would love to say thanks to you. Go ahead, Kitty.
Thank you. Well, I was lucky enough to get to know Suzanne way back when several of us sat on the Human Services Alliance Committee together when I was running the Mental Health Foundation in Boulder. And Suzanne was exemplary back then, and as you can tell from her talk today, she's even more so today. She has done amazing work through Sister Carmen, and we are all lucky to have her. Suzanne, Rotary has been working to eliminate polio from the world since the 1980s, and we are practically there. We are so close. As a small gesture of our appreciation for your work today, we will be donating 100 doses of the polio vaccine in your honor to further that cause. So
Yay!
I just want to say thank you, Suzanne, for all that you do and for speaking here today. And it is great to see you.
Thank you, Kitty. That's such an awesome gesture. I really appreciate it.
You are welcome, dear friend.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. Thank you, Kitty. And Suzanne, we're looking forward to seeing what we can bring for you and Sister Carmen this next on May